There is a moment that comes quietly, often without warning. When the fear changes. For most of life, we are taught to fear death. The ending. The unknown. But for many older Americans, something else slowly takes its place. Not the fear of dying, but the fear of disappearing. Not being remembered. Not being spoken of. Not being carried forward in anyone's thoughts. Once we are no longer here. It's a difficult thing to admit. Because it sounds selfish at first. But it isn't. It's human. Death feels distant, abstract. But being forgotten feels personal. Many people in their later years will tell you, quietly, that death itself doesn't scare them the way it once did. They've lived. They've seen enough. They understand endings. What unsettles them is the idea that their life might dissolve without leaving a trace. Not a statue. Not a headline. Just nothing. This fear doesn't come from ego. It comes from meaning. From wanting to know that the years mattered. That the effort mattered. That the love, the patience, the sacrifices were not just absorbed by time and erased. There is a deep dignity in wanting to be remembered. Not for fame, but for presence. To be remembered as someone who showed up, who stayed, who tried. Legacy is often misunderstood. People think it means wealth, achievements, or recognition. But for most older adults, legacy is much quieter than that. It's a memory in someone else's mind. A habit that lives on. A way of responding to the world. That was learned by watching you. A tone of voice. A value. A steadiness in difficult moments. These things don't come with certificates. They don't make noise. But they last. Fear of being forgotten often grows stronger as usefulness fades. When you're no longer the one solving problems. No longer the first call. No longer the center of activity. And it's natural to ask yourself, if I'm no longer needed, am I still important? That question can feel heavy. But it rests on a false assumption. Usefulness and worth are not the same. You were not valuable only when you were producing. You were not meaningful only when others depended on you. Your existence has value independent of function. That truth can be hard to accept. In a society that praises productivity above all else. Many older Americans were raised to believe that your value comes from what you do. Work hard. Provide. Contribute. And for decades, that belief made sense. But later in life, that same belief can turn inward. And quietly wound. Because when work ends, when strength fades, when roles change, the question becomes unavoidable. Who am I now? Some answer that question with fear. Others answer it with reflection. Fear says, if I'm not remembered, I didn't matter. Reflection asks, what does being remembered actually mean? Memory is not always loud. Some lives echo through generations. Others ripple quietly, changing the course of just a few people. But those ripples matter. A life doesn't need to be widely remembered to be deeply meaningful. Think about the people who shaped you. Not the famous ones. The ordinary ones. The neighbor who listened. The parent who stayed calm. The teacher who believed in you. The coworker who showed integrity. Their names may not be spoken often, but their influence lives in you. That is legacy. Fear of death asks, what happens to me? Fear of being forgotten asks, did I matter to anyone? And perhaps the second question is harder to face, because it asks us to evaluate our lives, not by length, but by depth. Meaning is not found at the end of life. It is woven through it. In the way you treated people when no one was watching. In the patience you practiced when you were tired. In the restraint you showed when anger would have been easier. These things leave marks, even if they're invisible. It's also important to remember this. Being remembered is not something you control. You can live with intention, with kindness, with integrity, and still fade quietly from public memory. That does not erase the value of how you lived. Self-worth cannot depend on remembrance. Because remembrance belongs to others. Worth belongs to you. There is a kind of peace that comes when we stop asking, will they remember me? And start asking, did I live honestly? Did I treat people with dignity? Did I offer what I could, when I could? Those answers matter more than memory alone. Some people leave behind stories. Others leave behind stability. Others leave behind kindness that was never repaid, but never forgotten either. And some legacies are still forming, long after we think our role is finished. A quiet word, a final example, a way of aging with grace. These things speak louder than we realize. So perhaps the deeper question isn't whether we'll be remembered. It's this: what kind of memory would be enough? Not for history, not for recognition, but for peace. As you sit with that thought, consider this gently. If your life were remembered, not by what you achieved, but by how people felt around you, what would you hope they'd say?